What is going on, everybody? Again, this is Big Flippin' Bass, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about schooling bass. It's that time of year for us here. It's getting hot. Today was running probably 95, 96. Felt more like 100. Super hot day today, and but it was cloud cover all day, so it was real windy. It didn't. If you weren't careful, it didn't seem like 100-degree weather, but it was. And the cloud cover means one thing specifically, that the bass are going to pull away from structure. They're still going to be close enough they can get to the structure, but they're going to be up in the structure, up in the laydowns, up underneath the docks. They're going to be just on the outside of it. I have been trying to get some film out for y'all. I wanted to make a quick video just so I had something to put up this week, but I haven't been very successful. We went out to Lake Houston a couple of days ago on the big boat, and the bite was so few and far between, it just wasn't worth me recording. Again, I've been on my home lake here in the neighborhood a couple of times, and the bites just been few and far between. It hasn't been worth anything me recording. Therefore, I didn't record today when we went out, and of course I had a good day. Starting to think these fish are a little camera shy. I know when I'm turning on the camera. But I'm going to go over a quick thing. I'm going to put up some pictures on the screen. It's going to show you what the lake looks like. It's going to show you what I'm fishing and what I was looking at today. With the schooling bass, I came across a couple of different schools, and I put in 8 in the boat in a matter of probably about 3 hours, and I was with my dad, and he put 6 in the boat. So it's not a very bad day for just 3 hours. I'm going to first talk about what was successful for me, what I was throwing. And this is a Abu Garcia Pro Max Rod and Reel combo. It's a 7:1 gear ratio. 7:1 gear ratio. I got 17-pound fluorocarbon on it. It's a little heavier from what I normally throw on my crankbaits, but it's the only real cranking rod I took today. I had one other one, but this one I've got dialed in pretty good with some crankbaits. The reason why I have 17-pound fluorocarbon on here is because a lot of times I'll throw jigs with this. It's a little stiffer rod, even for a medium heavy. I like it like that, and it's really good for my jigs, chatterbaits, and that kind of stuff. This is the square bill I was using. It's the H2O Express. Shad Truce, I think is the color of it. It has a nice black side back to it with some flake in there. Some silver flake along the side, a silver line, red eyes, and a nice shad or chartreuse color with an orange bottom. And the water out here is pretty stained right now. We've had some rains coming through off and on, so the water's stained, not really too high though. It's drained out since the last rain a little bit. But the fluorocarbon is important because it gets it down to the depth it's supposed to dive. I think this one dives, I want to say 4 to 8 feet. I'm not 100% on that, but it's important to know the depths that your crankbaits dive. I need to look this one up and write it down. I usually write it with a black Sharpie on the bottom. But the reason being is that you come across the area, you want your crankbait to dive at least that depth. So if I'm fishing anywhere from 2 feet in water off the bank down to 5 feet, I want to be sure that my crankbait's diving at least 5 feet. Even a foot, maybe even a foot to 2 feet more. The reason being is you want that crankbait to hit the bottom and deflect off the structure that's laying down on the bottom. So this one was perfect for the distance or the depth I thought it was fishing in. Again, they were running up against the bank. They were about 5 to 10 yards off the bank for the majority of the time, and they were I'd probably say right around 5 to 6 feet of water. So this one worked out perfect for me. I hit several of them up around different areas. Again, I'm going to pull that up and try to show you here in just a second. But awesome color for murky water, stained water, dirty water. It shows it really good and gives a nice little flash to it so the bass can hone in on it. And I missed a big one, and I'll show you here in just a second where I missed that big one at, okay? So hang with me. I'm gonna try to get these pictures up to you, or the video, or the pictures up of the lake, and I've got stuff marked on it, and I'll describe what that is. But first, for you crappie fishermen, I got a surprise to you. Again, I wasn't recording. I wish I was, but I caught an absolute slab of a crappie. He looked a lot bigger than what he weighed in. He weighed in at 1 pound and 3 ounces, but he looked a lot bigger than what he was. And I'll put that picture up first, and then we'll get into what the lake looks like. All right, give me just a minute. Alright, so this first picture, you're looking at that giant crappie I caught. Again, that's 1 pound and 3 ounces. This one's flipping over to what the actual layout of the lake is. As you can see there in the middle, we got a island, and then it's a dam down at the bottom of the screen, and then up to the top right hand corner is where all the canals go back. I'm going to show you here in a little bit what the key points were, and I have them marked on the pictures of where we caught them, where I hung them, missed them, that kind of stuff, and what the structure was like in the water. So let's move on to the next one. Alright, so this picture is going to be a picture of the dam when you first get up to it. The white there at the top right hand corner, that's the dam itself. That little gray line coming off is a fence post that comes into the water. The green little squiggle lines there, that's going to represent your structure. There's a lot of bushes and trees laid in the water and tree branches hanging over the water. The blue X is actually where our boat was positioned. We dropped anchor off right there, and the red circle represents where the bass had schooled up at. Again, they were about probably 10 yards or so off the bank, 5 to 10 yards, and about 5 to 8 feet of water. But this one is actually, I think, where, no, it went right there. This is where I got the first hit. This is where I caught the first fish. He went but maybe a pound or so. And then from there, we've just kind of started fan casting to find the school. Alright, so just to the left of the dam itself is a bunch of riprap. So again, the green lines represent structure in the water. That orange line at the top left-hand corner, that's actually like a drainage pipe that comes out and it kind of hangs over the water. I don't think it actually works anymore. There's never any water coming out of it. The blue X again is a position of us on the boat, and the red circle is the hot spot. Again, it's about 5 to 10 yards off the bank, and those riprap, there's like giant boulders, concrete slabs that have been broken up and stuff like that is sitting in the water, and they actually protrude out into the water a fairly large amount. They go down a little deeper than just right there at the bank. So that's where those bass are staging up. Riprap is extremely important to find, even though I've never been super successful on the riprap here in this lake until today. Is something that you could catch fish on usually year round. In the colder months, it's going to hold heat. In the warmer months, it provides shelter and shade. So I always try to find some riprap. Runs with crankbaits is usually a good one. A football jig will work around riprap and keep you from getting hung up as well. And this one as well, just to the right, on the right hand side of the circle, right where it starts, that's where I hung the big one. He was probably 5.5 to 6 pounds. I knew as soon as I hooked him, I didn't have him hooked good, and right as I got him to the boat, he shook his head back and spit the hook on me, so that was a real disappointment. Alright, this image is right before you get into the canals, and the bank closest to us on the bottom of the screen here is usually where I do pretty good, but right there where the bank kind of indents and creates a narrower channel is actually where we were staged up today, and that's where the main target was. There's a lot of current going through there, a lot of fish were sitting there, and there's a little bit of a drop-off, so they were sitting staged up on the drop-off feeding as the fish came by. Alright, so this is a behind the view of where that channel is at and where that land breaks into the water there on the right hand side where it kind of caves in and creates that little narrow channel. The green lines here, the squiggle lines, represent trees that have fallen in the water. They've moved a little bit over time with the rain. The circle represents the hot spot where the school was, and the X again represents where the boat was staged at. Again, you're looking probably 5-6 feet of water right here. It's right out in the middle. It's on round cover on both sides of them. And there's a little bit of a drop off right there. I noticed, if you got too far to the left or right, then you started picking up grass on the crankbait. So I know it's a little deeper there in the middle. And they were sitting right on there on the lip of that drop off. And that's where they were feeding. As bait fish would go over, they would ambush them from there. The schooling bass usually happens after spawn. When they start pulling off deep, it starts getting hot. They'll start schooling up and feeding. And crankbaits are really good for that. You find, or drop shots even, you find a school, start throwing some crankbaits, then you can start looking at getting the bigger ones. But you first got to fire up the school. That's the most important thing, is finding that school, throwing something in there to get them straight. Dealing with schooling bass, like I said, first thing is you got to find them. Fish finders, obviously, is the best way to do that, but we done it the old-fashioned way. We just covered water, cast it out deep. We pounded the banks some, caught a few on the banks, but just one here and there. So when we've come across those schools, there's two important things you got to realize. One is you first got to get that first strike, like I was saying. That's going to fire up the school. Two is you got to have a lure in the water. It's fun that way because it's constant movement. But you don't have a whole lot of time to stop, adjust, this and that. That school can move at any point. That bait can move at any point. They're going to follow the bait around. The bait fish that they're feeding on, that school of bait fish can move, and at that point the school of bass is going to move. So the most important thing is you catch one, weigh it, record it, do whatever you got to do, throw it back, and then go again. If you're co-angling, the best thing to do is while one's taking care of their fish that they're bringing in. The other ones right hitting that same spot right over again. And that's going to keep the school active and keep them up and hitting. A drop shot is really great in this scenario. You know, if you throw down some finesse on them and catch a couple of small ones, it's going to get that school activated and they're going to start feeding. Then you probably want to go to a larger bait, larger profile bait, like a big deep diver or something like that. Something that a bigger bass is going to hang on to, or hone in on. Carolina rig, something like that, that usually generates a bigger bass or a bigger strike. And most of the time in that scenario, a smaller bass is going to be the ones that are strike first. They're a little more active. Will use more energy when they're feeding, and they're going to hit first. But once that school is fired up and ready to go, that's when you can catch the big ones. So try, if you come across a school in a depth finder or something like that, try dropping to something finesse, a shaky head, a drop shot, something like that, a weightless Senko even, maybe, if you can get it to sink far enough down there. Just something that'll fire that school up. And once you know you got the school going, then go for the big one. Drop your big crankbait on there, drop your big swim bait down in there, or a big Carolina rig's really good for it. And then you can go for some bigger bass. And that's how you're going to find these bigger bass out in the summer times, the dead heat of summer, when they've pulled off deep, they're away from the bank. You know, you can still flip up under docks, so hide up under the docks for shade and stuff like that. But a lot of them will be out deeper, and that's when you're going to find their big ones during the summertime. And the schools, and again, I've said in one of my videos before, I think you can tell a school and bass over a bass that stays covered. The bass, when you catch them, if it's dark, that means they're being real close to vegetation. They're usually up shallower, up under lily pads, mats, that kind of thing, and grass beds. If they're kind of whitish, real bright silver, lighter in color, that's your schooling bass. That's where you know you've come across a school usually. But like I said, you can most of the time a depth finder is going to be the best way to determine that. If you don't have a depth finder, you can always just do what we done: turn your trolling motor on high, throw in some crankbaits, and just cover some deep water as fast as you can, and until you get a hit. But once you get a hit, you want to mark it, look around your surrounding areas, see if you can kind of visualize where that spot was at where you got that bite, because that's going to be important. You know, that's where the school's at. And throw out a buoy if you got one, mark that point so you know. Drop anchor even if you can. If you got if you got an anchor, drop right there. That way you know you stay on that one spot, and just really keep an eye on where that spot's at. Because if you move spots, it may stop the bite, or you may not get a bite. If the bite slows down, the school dies off, you're out of luck. You gotta search again and go around until you find them again, because they will move and they'll move quickly. That's why it's important to be sure you're constantly keeping a line in the water to catch as many as possible at that point in time. Well, that does it for today. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, hit that little like button down below. If you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Leave a comment on some stuff that you want to see, and I'll try to get that out to you. If you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment to me. If you're not following on any of the social media websites, Facebook, Instagram, I'll leave a link down below. You can follow me on that. And until next time, like I always say at the end of my videos, tight lines to you, and I'll see you in the future.